Hi, guys. Welcome to the next lecture series. We're going to be looking at the War of 1812. And before we begin, we need to talk about presidents. So, to this point, we have George Washington as the first president, John Adams is the second, Thomas Jefferson is the third. And after his second term, we will have a new election in which James Madison, a Democratic Republican, will become the fourth president. So, you're going to want to know James Madison. Number four. All right, the War of 1812, which is really the American Revolutionary War Part Two, in my opinion. So up in the right-hand corner, I have the amazing Tchaikovsky, is a classical composer who put together a piece called the 1812 Overture, full with cannon fire in his music. So you're welcome to listen to that if you want, but most of you probably will not be down with the classical music. But if you're bored, there you go. All right, the War of 1812. So before we get there, we're going to look at a rising problem again with Native Americans. So we talked about the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Again, as settlers move west, they're going to continue to take Native American land, and Native Americans have really two options: move or stay and fight. And so, one of my favorite characters in history is a guy by the name of Tecumseh. I think Native Americans, the story that's told is they really don't have a chance. They're not able to withstand American firepower, and really that's kind of a myth, especially when we get to Tecumseh. So Native Americans in the Northwest Louisiana territories, they are tired of losing their land, and a Shawnee chief by the name of Tecumseh, who is a great warrior and even better uh, at strategy. In fact, some of his war strategy will later be adopted by the American military. They will spend, and in fact, if you go to some of the American military academies today, they spend time teaching about Tecumseh. So he's supported by Great Britain. And Great Britain, again, even though they've left their North American forts, they always are looking for an opportunity to stick it to Americans. So they support Tecumseh. Tecumseh is looking to take on the American forces, and several tribes united under Tecumseh to fight settlement west. One gentleman by the name of William Henry Harrison, we'll talk about him again. He was the governor of the Indiana Territory. He sends a warning to Tecumseh saying, hey, you have to stick to our past agreements. And there were a number of treaties that America had made with smaller tribes. This will be, unfortunately, a um, uh, sad part of our American history where we'll make a number of alliances with Native Americans only to turn around and break those treaties. So Tecumseh responded when Harrison said, "Hey, you got to stick to this treaty." Said, "You know, these chiefs that signed that, they don't speak for the other tribes. They gave away their land. Um, they don't speak for us. We're not about to do that." So Tecumseh and his forces uh, are continuing to get more Native American tribes to join, including the Creek Nation. And Harrison, and they're small skirmishes that are breaking out throughout the Indiana Territory. Harrison leads a group that attacks and defeats the Shawnee people near Tippecanoe. So this is known as the Battle of Tippecanoe, which is fun to say, like tipping a canoe. Tippecanoe River in 1811. Um, Tecumseh travels to Canada, joins up with some British forces there, and the British are continuing their policy of impressment. They're continuing to push from Canada south. They are becoming more aggressive towards the American government. And so we have a term called war hawks, and war hawks are those in the American government that say, hey, we need to just go to war with Britain. We need to show Britain who's boss. And they're upset with a lot of British policies, but of course, the big one is impressment. And so on June 18th, 1812, Congress will declare war on Great Britain. So it's known as the War of 1812. It'll actually start earlier in Europe, in 1811. However, in North America, it will start in 1812. This was the first time that Congress, given the power to declare war, actually declares war. And this is at the end of James Madison's first term. He will be elected to a second term at the end of 1812. All right, the war begins. So we have a number of battles. A couple of these we'll run through them. The Battle of York in Toronto, Canada, between British and American forces and their Native American coalition. We'll have the Battle of Erie, which is a large naval battle that takes place on one of the Great Lakes, and in many ways it's almost like an ocean, it's so big. We have an individual by the name of Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry. Where he gets the nickname Hazard, I'm not sure, but he will become really famous during this war, and he'll be famous for a number of different reasons, which we'll talk about. We have the Battle of Thames, October of 1813, in which we have Henry Harrison, which we talked about. The governor will take on those forces and end up winning. Battle of Horseshoe Bend, not Horseshoe Bend, Idaho, but Horseshoe Bend in the New Orleans territory. And this group is led by a guy named Andrew Jackson, who we'll see again. And we'll talk about that battle. The Battle of Plattsburgh in New York, which was a key battle of the war, September 11th, 1814. The attack on Washington, D.C. in 1814. And then the famous Battle of Baltimore at Fort McHenry, in which British forces are attacking via ships the Battle of Fort McHenry. It's a naval battle. This is where the famous Star Spangled Banner will be written by Francis Scott Key, who is taken prisoner and is on board a British ship. He watches this battle take place and he writes our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. So Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry writes this very famous quote: "We have met the enemy and they are ours," meaning we've met them and they belong to us. So Commodore Perry definitely didn't lack confidence, and he leads a small band of American sailors and defeats a larger, more superior force at the Battle of Lake Erie. So the American plan was to attack Canada. British and Native Americans take over Detroit, which was a fort at the time before it will become the city. And they seize this, so the Americans are cut off from heading north into Canada. The British controlled Lake Erie. And so Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry is ordered by Madison to seize the lake. Perry takes part in this battle. His ship is hit and is sinking, and while it's sinking, he drives his ship forward, gets close enough to a British ship. They attack the British ship, jump on board, take it over, and he continues fighting even while his ship is sinking. They're able to take on the British Navy and win. The British eventually surrender on September 1813. They surrender during this battle. The British forces, they don't surrender the entire war, but they give up after this battle, and Perry will become a national hero. All right, some other major battles. We talked about William Henry Harrison. He will become a president, and this is partly why, he becomes a war hero as well. He defeats the British and Native Americans at the Battle of Thames. Tecumseh was killed, and when he is killed, the native coalition that he had formed that had been very successful, it falls apart. So that tells you quite a bit of what type of leader Tecumseh was. He was able to gather a group of different tribes, keep them together, and fight American forces, and do so fairly successfully.